The CGA Tour, a podcast unlike any other. Host Calvin Alexander.
Welcome back to the latest episode of the CJ Tour podcast. As always, here I'm your host, Calvin Glenn Alexander. And on tonight's episode of the podcast, I'm joined remotely, but joined here by fellow Oklahoma State alum Jake Carlson as we do a Big 12 football, Oklahoma State football season preview. We hopefully do a Big 12 football here later on, but Oklahoma State do wins, losses, go through every game on the schedule this season, and pick who we think we're going to beat and who we're going to lose to. So, Jake, with that being said here, how's it going?
Doing okay. A little under the weather.
Mm.
Got some stomach problems I got to get sorted out. I realized my hair also kind of looks like Johnny Bravo. It wasn't. If any of y'all know me, I don't really care. But I just, I don't look at myself in the mirror a lot. So, yeah, it kind of looks a little crazy. Looks a little Johnny Bravo-ish, and yeah, that's okay. I don't.
So go watch the podcast on YouTube. See what Jake's hair looks like today. See my beautiful face, and follow along with us a little bit here too. Is what I'd say. As gonna go week by week here. Basically, I'm now sharing the screen here, so you're watching along with us here on YouTube at the CGA Tour on YouTube channel. And look at the podcast here. The link will be in the description for iTunes and Spotify for the podcast on YouTube. But yeah, we're going to go through here. So the first 3 weeks of the season, all non-conference, of course. That's how the Big 12 does it. That's how a real Power 5 conference does it, would say. But we have University of Central Arkansas Bears at 7 o'clock Eastern. I'm not going to go through the times through all that anymore. But it's a home game Saturday, September 2nd. Is this one too easy to say, yes, it's a W?
No.
Okay.
We'll win, but I mean, I like 24-14. I'll throw that out there. We go through this every year when we look at our non-conference schedule. Was that last year, 2 years ago, when we played Bobby Petrino in Missouri State, and they kind of gave us a tough time? It's Gundy's mantra, It's Gundy's mantra to play like crap the first 3 games, but somehow win, unless you're, playing Central Michigan. But
well, that's true. I would say the Arizona State game scared me enough last year, where I don't think you're wrong necessarily at all. I am curious here what you think as far as like, okay, are we only going to be able to put up 24 points? We're going to be able to put it up, in the 40s here. Well, I don't see a lot of scoring here on looking through the schedule. A lot of teams we're going to play against after last season's end. And I'm not too hopeful that we're going to score a lot of points in any of these games, really.
yeah, I I feel like we will probably have one of the lower half offenses in the Big 12. And lower half might even be generous. We could have lower third offenses in the Big 12. We might be 10 or below. Just, I mean, running back, I think that's probably the position we're most positive about, right? I mean, Ollie Gordon was, I would say we have pretty high expectations for him. Nixon, right? That's the other kid. I think they provide a really good 1-2 punch, and I know Nixon got a couple more carries than Gordon did, especially earlier in the year. They didn't really, not to get into last year's questioning, but we kind of questioned that last year why Ollie Gordon wasn't playing as much, and Nixon was playing more. I don't know if it had to do with red shirt or whatever. Doesn't really matter, but I think those two in a 1-2 punch would be pretty ideal, especially the fact that I don't know if our quarterback can throw over 20 yards down the field. And we have no idea if our offensive line is going to be able to block this year. And I say that because we never know if our offensive line is going to be able to block. It's not even like I'm not even like basing it off anything in. Well, I guess I kind of am basing it off stuff in the past. We just have a lot of inconsistencies in that front. Uh, so yeah, I'm a little interested to see where that route goes.
I know we're going to talk more about the construction of this offense, so I'm going to let what you said here rest as is, and we move on to Arizona State. Um,
Yeah,
at Arizona State, night game. It's cool, but it's at Arizona State. Second week of the season, we've got to go there. Last year, didn't they come to Stillwater? Isn't that the deal, basically? So this year we got to
yeah,
go there.
home and home. Yeah,
This is a new Arizona State team. I mean, Herm Edwards last year was the coach when we played them, and then he was canned later on in the season, and they didn't do anything. That just goes to show me that there could be a positive way to look at this Oklahoma State fan. Hey, they've got a lot of things up in the air. They've got a brand new head coach. They've got a lot of things going where who knows, but maybe there's a way we could be just killing it and get off
mhm,
the pot starting in Central Arkansas and play Arizona State and be good there too. Or
yeah,
I think there's honestly a possibility too that like Arizona State beats us and it's a real nail biter of a game. I don't think they're predicted to do too good in the Pac-12, which makes me feel good. But when I
yeah,
do talk about that, I do have to go, we're not picked too good to do too good in the Big 12. We have one first place vote to win the Big 12. Wonder who that was in the media poll, but I have a guess. Um, we're also picked to finish seventh in the Big 12, though. So not not fantastic there from that aspect as far as confidence level goes. And now I'm going to ask you. I think Central Arkansas. By the way, I'm also going to have the wins and losses for me. Central Arkansas's W in my book as well. But now I got to ask you about Arizona State. What are you thinking?
yeah. I like that you said they're kind of a just a new team. It's a team that I kind of throw out whatever happened last year. I just checked. Who is it? SI has Arizona State as 10th in their Pac-12 power rankings. They were 3-9 last year. Um, Kenny Dillingham coming in came from Oregon. Really good offensive coordinator, offensive guy. We don't know who's starting quarterback for them. They've got. We looked the other day, and they have two options: transfer from Notre Dame and then a freshman, um, who I'm sure are both potentially going to get playtime in that game too. Just trying to see who performs better. But I think in most years we would probably chalk this up as a win, right? I mean, since we've graduated from Oklahoma State, probably about every year we probably would have beat Arizona State. Uh, but I don't know if we have the horses this year to do it, or if they do have the horses to do it. You never know when a new head coach comes in or what transfers they get, or maybe they have some crazy running back. Like who was it that we played a couple years ago where they was it Boise State where they had the Wyoming transfer and he had like the most yards in college football or something like that. Like stuff like that can happen. Um, and so yeah, I don't have a read on this at all. And the regards to the Big 12 preseason poll, I have some questions about it considering they picked every single new team to finish 8 or below. Uh, and I just don't know if I don't I don't think our conference is good enough to do that. I guess that's kind of like coming up now. I just don't see. You know, like, am I supposed to be convinced that Texas Tech and Baylor are better than Houston and Cincinnati based off recent success? No, I don't care who they like. I know they didn't play as
I
good a competition, but it just I don't know.
well, yeah, I'll say this: we don't play Texas this year, so now I can have the Texas discussion here. I think it's early enough on the podcast, but if you're staying here, you know the MO in Texas. Historically, over the past decade, we own Texas. I mean, like as an Oklahoma State fan growing up, in my 30 years here on this earth now, like I'm very happy to say, oh, we own Texas for a decade. Like that's a cool thing to say. And own may be too strong of wording, but like when you're really looking at it, we I think we're 7-3 against them over the past decade. So, and if you go back and you want to slice it up a certain way, I'm sure it's 6-4, 5-5, or 8-2. Reason being, I'm
Mhm.
saying this is that Texas was picked to finish first overall in the Big 12 preseason, media poll. Right? They got the most amount of first place votes. They got the 41 overall. There were 886 votes for them to win the Big 12 of all media members. Like, when are we going to say, yeah, you know what? Texas is just not going to be there. And I got the answer. It's after the season because they won't be in the Big 12 anymore. And we'll see them face off against SEC, and they'll become the Texas A&M of the SEC, or they'll become the whatever. I don't know, but they won't be in the Big 12.
Yeah.
We won't be thinking about it. We'll move on with the 12-team conference, and it'll be the Big 12, and everyone will be happy that the name's right at least for one season. With all this being said, I don't put a ton of stock in the media preseason poll because Texas is ranked number one and Quinn Ewers last year. Well, because like Quinn Ewers last year, like or Ewers, however you say his name, he was good, but then he played Oklahoma State, whose defense fell off of a cliff to end the season, gave up 49 points the week after they basically gave Quinn Ewers happy feet, and he was dancing around, couldn't play well in the second half. So listen, the media may know something that I don't. That's well aware. I'm not in the media poll. I don't think you are either, unless you're not telling me. And we have to go on record as saying the media preseason poll has Oklahoma State with one vote. You and I, Oklahoma State alums, can be as biased as we want to. That is not representative. Like Oklahoma State should have gotten 0 first place votes.
Let,
I mean,
let me ask you this question, because I just thought about it. Who would you have picked to be number one?
K State.
Okay.
K State, easily. Not a question. K State, moving on.
Because, like, the way I look at Big 12 football this year is it's going to feel like Big 12 basketball, except like 10 feet of crap below.
I could see KU winning the Big 12, who's 9th in the Big 12 this year. I
Yeah.
could see it happening.
Yeah.
Now,
They
the other
won't.
part about this,
Like,
yeah.
the point is, we just don't know. This year seems like such a crapshoot, right? Like,
Oh, by far and away, yeah. There's not like no part of me goes, oh, this is this is the year for a certain team in the Big 12.
yeah, no.
This is the first year in a while where I go, OU, maybe you can beat them. Like maybe they won't win the Big 12, right? This is the first year I go with that. Um, I don't really love I'm never gonna love the Texas ranked number one until they prove to me that they're back. Like when Texas is actually back, that means that they win the Big 12.
Yeah.
If the whole Texas is back, a lot of people I think would say that's when Texas is like college football playoffs. To me, it's when they're in the Big 12 championship for 2 years in a row. They haven't done that in a long time. So, if ever
Well, it's
Big 12
like,
championship has existed,
fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.
shout out Jake
Fool
Paul.
me 30 times. Like, at what point are you just like, throw in the damn towel on this Texas crap? Like, because I'm sure if we asked Will, or I'm sure if we talked to a K State fan or a Kansas fan or a West Virginia fan, they'd say the same thing. Like, it's just, Will went to Oklahoma, for those that don't know, but it's, I can't stand the same crap every single year about Texas, because they haven't proved to me in the last 15 years that they are capable of doing it. And if someone wants to bring up their Sugar Bowl win, congratulations. You beat Georgia when they sat out 9 first-round draft picks, okay? Like, we don't care. We don't care. I know Oklahoma State fans saying we don't care about bowl games. I definitely don't care about bowl games. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know that. So,
Well, I gotta say too, Oklahoma State, we're a good program. I'm very proud to have graduated from Oklahoma State, but this is not an Oklahoma State completely biased podcast. Like we are not trying to just absolutely just eat our own number twos. And I'd rather say that we are because we're that good and because we'll be in the Big 12 and we'll be running it. And that's my hope here in a couple of years. But this is not the year that we're going to be doing that. And I can see K State, a team that went 9-3 last year, brings their starting quarterback, who unfortunately showed us what's up, back, and their head coach back. Now, Texas does that as well too, except for the one difference is that Texas wet the bed every chance they had. They lost to TCU when they could have beat them. They lost to OU, from what I remember. They lost to us when he finished with a 7-6 record overall. Like we lost, I mean, 5 out of our last 6 games. One of those that we won was against Texas. So I just don't trust the Texas hype. And why I'm bringing all this up too is just kind of get back to the Arizona State point is that we made it through 2 games. We're 16 minutes in the podcast, so like maybe I got to speed it up a little bit. But there's there's a lot of hype around Oklahoma State being decent this year because Alan Bowman previously, like in 2017 or 2018, kind of lit us up. There's a lot of curiosities I have of why he transferred to Michigan. We've talked about that. There's a lot of curiosities I have. I have curiosity so much so on the reasonings why he did. Why do you when you know you're going to have a real tough time starting at a program, why transfer there? It's because the academics, because of family stuff. It's I mean, there's myriad of reasons you can transfer to university. But his job at Texas Tech was taken from him by the other guy. I can't remember off the top of my head. So it's not like he transferred to Michigan going, oh, I'm going to go from Texas Tech to Michigan. It was, wait, he's transferring to Michigan to basically be a backup, more or less, because they're Michigan's bringing in 5 stars. That's just what they're doing. They got Jim Harbaugh, they have a previous NFL head coach who's been to the Super Bowl. They're going to be bringing in 5 stars until Jim Harbaugh gets suspended for 6 games because he overfeeds his players or whatever. The recent news story is. So with all of this together here, I am curious why Alan Bowman transferred to Michigan, especially when he did, and then why he chose Oklahoma State. Because he's probably going to be the starter through the whole season unless something real bad happens, either injury wise, which we never wish on anyone, or play wise, which if he does play bad and listen, Gunnar Gundy or Garrett Rangel looks better, then hey, you know what? All for making a change if he's not playing well. I mean, I'm not the guy who's like stick with the starter because he had one off season. No, let's switch it up. So Alan Bowman goes to Arizona State. The running game looks decent. I'm personally saying we beat Arizona State. You know, I'm saying we beat Arizona State. I'm saying it's really, really close. But the Vegas odds makers, with at least with FanDuel's where I'm pulling this from, have our over under at 6.5 wins. And I like the over barely, barely as I look at the schedule. So I'm gonna say we win, beat Arizona State. What do you got?
Yeah, I think, like you said, it's going to be like a 24-21 game or, 35-31, just one of those that it's like, these are just two mediocre teams playing each other.
Mm-hmm.
These are two teams that are going to finish probably around the same area in their conference, lower half, that are playing each other. And it might look good because these teams are just not that good. But like I agree that we probably win, um, just because we probably have more cohesion, um, since our head coach has had us in a stranglehold for the last 18 years or whatever it is. Um, so there's that identity a little bit more than what Arizona State has or has had recently. Um, so I would take us to the only thing that does concern me a little bit is the weather because it's going to be freaking hot. And it might be a heat that some of these guys have never experienced before. So yeah, I that's probably the only thing that goes into play here. Um, Complete sidebar question: does Zane Flores play this year?
No.
He's
Well,
redshirted.
actually, I don't want to say that confidently. I'd say yes under two possibilities. Under a Mason Rudolph break glass situation, that's how Mason Rudolph basically played, or
Yep.
under the new redshirt rules where you can play I think it's 3 games and still be redshirted. I could see that happening for sure. I think there's a lot of possibilities in that, especially if it's a listen, this guy looks so good. Let's see how he does against one of the 3 new teams that we haven't played before that are the last 3 games of the season in extra time.
Or
One of the first 3 games of the season.
yep, yep,
South Alabama, Zane Flores comes in the second half to see what we got. Cool.
yeah,
Because
yeah. Well,
why not?
I mean, and this is the thing. I don't think Zane Flores can be worse than what we saw from Gundy or uh
Bingo.
blanking on Rangel. I just don't think that Zane Flores would come in a game and look worse than those guys did. And I say that because Zane Flores should probably be our backup quarterback. And the only reason he's not is because daddy has a son on the team. Now, is this me wearing hater glasses a little bit? Yeah, probably. Do I care? Not really. But purely based on talent, Zane Flores is better than probably all 3 quarterbacks, just based on talent. Now, there's a lot more, like Tom Brady didn't have all the talent in the world. And I'm not saying Alan Bowman's Tom Brady, but there's a lot more that goes into being a quarterback than just talent. So it, I'm unsure where that route goes, but I would like to see at least some of him this year. And I'll take the quote from you. With that being said, South Alabama, where are you at?
W. Not even thinking about it. If we do not beat South Alabama, season's done. Like 3 weeks in, if we don't beat South Alabama, we could have lost Central Arkansas and Arizona State, but if we beat South Alabama, I still got hope. If we don't beat South Alabama, season's over. Or, I mean, do you differ on this?
No, is that like? I mean,
I
that's like our Southern Illinois game, right? From basketball.
all right. So moving on to Iowa State. Yeah, on that one. This is gonna be a 3-hour podcast at this point, but for good reason. At Iowa State, Ames. It's on a Saturday. I'm mentioning this here because not before too long we have a Friday game. But Saturday at Iowa State in Ames. Time is TBD. I don't feel good about Iowa State. I never have. 2011 still burns a very, very horrible, scarring image in my head. But the media preseason poll, if I'm taking anything from it, even though I'm not, because I said earlier when Paul ran about how I don't like Texas and don't think they're that good and they haven't proven it, but they're ranked number 1. So why is the media poll right? But with that being said, there are maybe several hundred people who vote on this. I'm not sure how many people vote on the preseason poll overall. Um, for the media, Iowa State, they're picked to finish 10th, and Oklahoma State's picked to finish 7th. That should mean something, right?
Sure, but and this is the big but. We don't beat Iowa State when we're good. We also don't beat Iowa State when they are bad. So why would I
We did
expect them?
last year.
Were they bad?
Throw it in your face. We did last year, though.
But I don't. But we beat them at home, right? That was a home game that we beat them, I believe.
We beat them at home, and it was by and it was by 6. That's one of our other wins later on the season. But it was
I
about 6.
I would put
It was it was a good time.
I would put $5 down that the score is the exact same this year in Ames, and we lose.
Flipped 20 Iowa State, 14 Oklahoma State.
Yep.
And we lose. All right. Well, I'm putting that down here. All right. So Jake, you're taking the first L, Iowa State. I'm gonna say coin toss, W. We each have 2 coin tosses we can put out here, but I'm saying coin toss W. All right. Trying to give ourselves a little bit of leeway here. Um, I think is fair. I want to say. I think is fair. All right.
The one thing I want to address, real quick. We
Yeah.
have a bye early again, and it sucks. Because our bye week last year was also early, and we were just hurt. Everybody was hurt because there was no time to make up. So I want to point that out.
Yeah, see, Spencer Sanders being hurt is something that will be his lifelong story at Oklahoma State. Like if Oklahoma State later puts up a ring of honor for Spencer Sanders because, let's say, for example, he goes to the NFL and he wins a couple Super Bowls or whatever, and he's a storied guy, and oh my gosh, I can believe that time that he, you know, basically we won 11 games in 2021 and we won the Fiesta Bowl. Like Spencer Sanders could have his name in the ring of honor. It's totally possible. But Oklahoma State
Sure.
fandom, the story behind him will always be, man, was he really injured a lot of this time? Because last year, tell you what, he basically beat Iowa State on a throw from what I remember. And if he doesn't come in and play those couple of snaps where he goes out right afterwards, then we lose to Iowa State. That's a game that I believe
Yeah.
Gunnar Gundy started, and that Sanders played like a drive or two, and I think one he threw an interception, and then one he had the touchdown catch, or touchdown throw to Jaden Nixon.
Yeah, and that was
So
wasn't that the fake counter bootleg play
mhm,
or whatever it was? Yeah.
that's a play that like we can't do. We
I think
should. I wish we could have done more with Sanders, but I don't think he was healthy enough to do it all the time. But we did. We
yeah,
pulled it off real well in that game. Um.
yeah.
All right. So K State here. I'm going to take everything with a grain of salt here. This schedule is real easy in the Big 12. K State is the only team Oklahoma State plays the whole year that has a preseason top 25 ranking, and it is after a bye week, and it's at home. With all that being said here, it's a bye week home, but on a Friday? Like, what? What are we doing? Still, I'm going to say loss. I don't think there's a way we beat K State. I think they're one of the Big 12, just as I said, are over under 6.5 wins. We beat K State, all of a sudden we've got to be 5-0. We beat the other 4 teams earlier on in the season, I would think. And we're off to the races, and Alan Bowman looks like he's making some dark horse type of talk about the Johnny Unitas Award. I'm not saying Heisman until it's like week 11. So there's talk of it, and I don't see that happening. So I'm gonna say a loss for K State. Are you in the same boat?
Yep.
All right. Well, with all that being said here, then thanks. All right. With all that being said here, KU home again. We got an extra day of rest because last week we played Friday. Now this week we're playing Saturday. KU at home. I really wish this was homecoming. I cannot state how much I wish this was the homecoming game, but it's not because I think KU will be pretty good. They have Jalen, right? Jalen Daniels.
That is it Jalen? No, Jalen Daniels is the one that yes, it is Jalen Daniels. Jaden Daniels is at LSU, right?
Right. Jalen. I think Daniels' last name. Was picked to
Yeah,
win
it
like
is.
the first team quarterback at Big 12.
I thought he got picked to win Big 12 Player of the Year.
And he might have gotten that as well. Last year, KU looked incredible when he was on the field,
Hmm.
and KU still beat us when they didn't have him playing. So this is a real tough game for me overall to pick. I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
Maybe you pick first this time here. Let me know. What are you thinking?
I am going Kansas.
Okay.
And the reason is Oklahoma State, as long as I've been a fan, has struggled against quarterbacks that are able to move. Um, like the Will Howard, Skylar Thompson. Um, the only one that we were seemingly able to handle was Trayvon Boykin. Chris Johnson, if anyone wants to go look that game up from when the third stringer at Baylor beat us. Um, there's a pretty long list of guys that are able to move that have beat us. So I take a loss just for that reason. Now, I could be completely wrong, and I'm okay with that, but I think we lose. Back-to-back home losses for probably the first time in Gundy era. Book it. Let's start burning down everything. Let's we're not going to a bowl game. I'm ready for the narratives. There you go.
All right. Well, with that being said here, um, I'm I'm gonna say I think we lose to KU. I don't. I've got 4 wins earlier on the season. I've got the win at Iowa State. That's a coin flip, and I've got to think of 3 more wins here as I look down the schedule. But I really think we've got a good chance against West Virginia, Cincinnati, and BYU. I just don't see it against KU. Don't see it. Bless you. They've got the best quarterback in the Big 12. Then I just don't see it happening. I just overall, you know. Uh,
I don't see it. I don't see it.
yeah. So yeah. All right. At West Virginia, I'm gonna go out and say here, this is the W of the season that I would like lock in if I was somebody. West Virginia is picked to finish last in the Big 12 football preseason media poll. And several other outlets have also put West Virginia finishing last with not a lot of Power Five starter caliber players on their team because they've had a lot of issues with their roster. So I'm saying this has got to be a W in my book. How much do you differ on this, if any?
I don't. Um, Based on what I've seen, it seems like West Virginia. Nobody likes the coach. Uh, their athletic department seems to be just completely in shambles right now, and it seems like they could probably be one of the worst Power Five teams in the country this year. So yeah, I would probably take that as a win.
Yeah. All right. Then the homecoming game, home, of course, is against Cincinnati. In Stillwater. I'm saying this one's a win. We usually win homecoming games. Cincinnati, if we go back to this preseason media poll that I have talked so much about now that I didn't plan on talking about, they're picked to finish second to last in the Big 12, and, and it's homecoming. I'm saying this one's a win. I'm liking it a lot here.
Yeah,
What are you
I
thinking? What are we at?
this is this is one of my coin flip games, but the only reason I would probably give it to OSU is due to the homecoming factor. Like you said, we seem to always be able to pull it out, but that's also because we almost always seem to face Texas Tech. So
Yeah. All right. I'm saying it's a win. You're saying it's a win. That means a lock. Putting it on the W here. All right. So far here, just a quick recap before we head into the inevitable game. That is our second home game in a row, but don't want to talk about that team just yet. We both have wins for all the non-conference games. You've got a loss in Ames. I've got a coin toss win in Ames. And then we have the exact same year, which is losses to both teams in the state of Kansas, win against West Virginia, and homecoming win against Cincinnati. Now we're talking about OU. So, like you said earlier, We already had that one, bye week earlier on, right after the Iowa State game. So now we don't have the bye week anymore. We're in the meat of the schedule, and we got to play OU. The one bright factor part of this is it's at home, and OU's not picked to finish top 2 in the Big 12. So in the preseason media poll, they are picked to finish third. But with that being said, they only have 3 more first place votes in the Big 12 preseason media poll than Oklahoma State. Only 3 more. So you know, what are you thinking here? What are you thinking against OU? I can just go out and say I don't like our chances last year. They were 6-7. We were 7-6. I was feeling really good about that, and definitely was holding my head high. But like we lost to them to end out the season,
I'm,
and that's just a bummer.
yeah,
Always is, but
we're gonna
it
lose.
was a real
We're gonna
bummer
lose
last year
again.
because I thought I should win. Yeah.
Yeah, and we got smoked that game, right? That
Yeah,
game was
this is a
bad.
game where it was, "Oh, okay, we've got a chance. We just beat Iowa State the week before. Is Sanders healthy? What's going on?" And then we basically gave up. I think we gave up 28 points in the first quarter, and I
Yeah,
don't think OU scored again, but it didn't matter. They just beat the brakes off of us,
yeah,
basically because we
it
couldn't
was
score
20.
anything at all.
Yeah, it was 28-0 out the gate. Um, yeah, I mean, I just no shot in my book. Um, as a lot of us know, Oklahoma State rarely comes out with any dog in them for these kinds of games because our head coach is a baby. So this is a loss. It's always going to be a loss as Mike Gundy is there. I will pick it as a loss until he is gone, or just for this last year because we won't play them again because Mike Gundy is a baby. Would I like to
We'll
still play
see.
OU? Yes. We've talked about this. Yes, we both want to still play OU. And the reason we're
Yeah.
not is because our athletic department is a bunch of babies. And the reason I know that is because Josh Holliday and Mike Boynton both said they still want to play OU. Gundy's the only one who said he doesn't.
Well, Gundy's just said several times, which is what I would agree with too. Here is that Gundy used this analogy. He said, "So what happens whenever you're faithful to a commitment for a long time, and then in that commitment, the other partner steps out on you and starts talking about how they're going to get more money without involving you in any way, shape, or form, and then they end up go out and they get more money, but now it means your commitment with them is really null and void, but they still want somehow for you to be a part of it." I get the analogy and I get the point there. I would say I don't want to play OU. I don't care. Maybe it makes me a baby. I'm done with OU. I'm good riddance. We don't have to play him. Because I'll tell you what, that's
I
the one game every single year that I go, listen, I will be over the moon if we win. And I'll be talking about it like I talk about 2011, 2021, and so many other years. But 2011, we won. We beat the brakes off him. It wasn't close. Since then, it's been either an overtime or a 4-point win. And that's the Tyreek Hill run it back, punt it again, Bob. And then that's the 2021. We win by 4, and we had a special teams touchdown in that game as well. So, which is a running back. Yeah, we ran it back off the kickoff. Now, of course, like, oh, you still got the ball back, and there are a bunch of other things. But when I bring up like that game with one of my best friends who's been on the podcast several times, so I founded a website with, and Walter Agnich, Walter Walter's his thing is, oh, to end out the Bedlam game in 2021, there was holding on that receiver, and he wouldn't let me even get a word in edgewise. He goes, "Nah, you're just so biased. You gotta look at the tape." And I'm like, dude, if you think about several other games that Oklahoma State played against OU, you could talk about the exact other way. And it's for years you could do it, but Walter wasn't having it. And that being said, when you got a best friend and you got a bunch of people you went to high school with, which is my case here, who are just so on the side of it's OU or else. We're always right. We're always the school, and we're always the school that when you guys lose to, you go, oh, whatever, it doesn't matter. When we all know you do care about it. And Oklahoma State fans, we're always so over the moon whenever we beat OU because we should be. It doesn't happen that often, right? I mean, you're going to celebrate when you do something you don't normally do. You're going to celebrate it. Yeah, if we win the Big 12, would you rather win the Big 12 this year or beat OU this year? And I think a lot of Oklahoma State fans would be like, well, are we going to win 10 games and beat OU? I mean, it'd be a conversation piece, right? It
That's
would not be,
ridiculous.
but it would
That's
not be like it would not be an automatic win the Big 12, right?
that's
It would not be.
that's dumb. That is dumb.
But I'm sure you've heard this. You went to Oklahoma State. I'm sure
Oh,
you know this thing,
It's just like I would tell somebody to their face that they are dumb for thinking that. Like
which I think is
you
completely fair.
you take your ridiculous state pride that much
Well,
over winning an entire conference?
the other thing I'd say here too is that a lot of Oklahoma State fans went to Oklahoma State. Not not dissing OU fans here, but I'm just saying when Oklahoma State fans are diehard Oklahoma State fans, it's usually because they went there. The diehard
I mean,
Oklahoma fans, it's not necessarily the same thing. Not saying necessarily the same thing about USC from living in LA. Not necessarily the same thing about living about if you went to USC or if you were or Michigan when I lived in Detroit. Like not necessarily the same. Where if you went to the school that everyone knows that wins and has Pete Carroll, Jim Harbaugh, or whoever it may be, right? Like or Alabama, now I live in Birmingham here, right? Like I've lived in the 4 states with these schools and the 4 cities with these schools that are all huge blue blood programs who historically win, historically do good in their conference. Michigan is the one example here that doesn't really have a ton of history of winning their conference because Ohio State's the team that usually, beats them in their conference. But Michigan, as of late, has definitely won and went to the playoffs last year. So they definitely qualify here. It's a lot of people are huge, huge fans of these schools, didn't go there. And so, yeah, we didn't beat them this year, but we almost always do. It's just different. Like last year, it's man, crap. We barely went to a bowl game. Man, I think we might be close. I'm not going to one year if it's our streak. But I don't think you're really gonna bum a ton of Oklahoma State fans out if we get to a I don't think Oklahoma State fans are gonna be all in arms and mad about Gundy if we just get to 5 wins this year and it looks like we tried hard and miss out on bowl game. I think it would be if we did that for multiple years, be like, hang on a second, fire and pitchforks. But it's not until
yeah,
something really changes. And the beating OU thing, it's a celebration when we beat OU because we don't do it that often.
yeah, because like if I were OU, I would treat OSU like a FCS school. Like it's like Georgia Southern playing Florida, you know, or App State, Michigan State. Because every other time they're gonna win. Like that's how I feel about it. Like, do I want to beat OU? Yeah, of course. But I also want to win every other game on our schedule. I want to go to the Big 12 championship. OU just happens to be one of those teams that is on our schedule. And the problem is, not a lot of OSU fans think of it that way. Mike Gundy doesn't think of it that way. If I were Mike Gundy, I would have made a joke and said, "Oh, I'm glad they're off our schedule. It's not like we can beat them anyways." Like he should be happy. He should be happy they left.
Well, I think he is. He's just happy and he also has a point. He's trying to get across, which is like, hey, it's not like we didn't want to play him anymore. We'd still be wanting to play him if they involved us in this conversation, you know?
I mean, would we have gone to the SEC though?
Well, like if they involved us in the conversation as far like we should have, we probably would have.
That would have been bad.
But I mean,
We would have ended up like Arkansas
all right. Well, I mean, who knows? But I got it. We got 3 more games to talk about here. So,
at
so
UCF.
at UCF, this is one of those that I say I think let's see, where's UCF ranked here? So UCF is one spot below us in the preseason poll. and if Gus Malzahn, I think this is a loss. I think it's back-to-back losses here.
Yeah, I agree.
Mine here. I
Um, and
don't know a ton about UCF, but I think this could be a loss here.
no, and I think having some of those teams, the new teams, going down the stretch and lower in the preseason rankings is just the lack of knowing. Um, just not sure what we're going to get from them, and the media members probably feel the same way.
Mm.
So yeah, I mean it's hard to imagine that we beat UCF, and I don't think we beat Houston either.
Wow. Yeah, yours is not a great line here to think about. I don't think we beat UCF, but I do think we beat Houston. I don't think I think that's the one where Gundy just tries to show up Dana Holgerson. And we
Yeah,
really bring everything out we can.
yeah, but I also think that's the one where Dana Holgerson brings everything out. And if there's one thing we know about Dana Holgerson, he has a his list of ridiculousness in terms of offensive play calling is very long. And the Oklahoma State list in
Yeah.
terms of ridiculous play calling is very short based on what we've seen over the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
not disagreeing there.
Dana's throwing the kitchen sink at Gundy. The just
I'm not saying you're wrong there, but Houston is just barely better than Cincinnati in the preseason poll. Like I am saying you're wrong, I guess. Yeah, I mean, I just really think it's that close. I think we could be right there on beating Houston. It's at Houston, so that makes me a little bit, but Houston, it's not like I've heard anything about Houston's home fans being just crazy and it being a tough place to play. Like I hear about Morgantown being a tougher place to play than
yeah, absolutely.
than a lot of other places. And guess what? We've been in there and we've beat. I don't think we've ever lost to West Virginia since they've joined the Big 12. I don't think we have.
Really?
Have we ever lost to West Virginia in football? See if I can
Not off
look
the top of my
up
head.
real quick here. But let me ask you. Well, let me ask you. BYU at home here.
I say that's a win, um, just because it's at home, and it'll probably be a game that they have to win for bowl eligibility.
Yeah, that's what you're saying here. I just checked it out here. I already in wins before this, so I might need to look back at this a little bit. But I'm saying this is a win as well here. Um, I'm putting us down for 8 wins, and I may be just really drinking the orange Kool Aid here, but I like us in a lot of matchups. I really do. Oh, excuse me. No, we lost to West Virginia last year. What am I talking about? We lost to West Virginia last year um, in football,
Woof.
and previously we had beat them every year since 2015. So that's tough. If we do lose to West Virginia this year, it's in Morgantown. They're supposed to be historically bad.
Yeah, they got
I,
worse though, whereas we just kind of like went down a little bit. I think they got like a lot worse.
yeah, see full games list page here. I do think there's a. I mean, let's see here. 20. Nope. So okay. So 2012, right when they joined. So basically, I mean, we've lost West Virginia 3 times since they've joined the Big 12.
I don't even remember
So
the game last year. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember the game at all last year.
it was wet. I remember it. It was a horrible game. Oklahoma State just couldn't do anything, couldn't score, and it was just a horrible game overall. So did not really enjoy it too much. It was raining the entire time. And it was just not too much fun.
Maybe that's why I don't remember it.
Yeah, I think it was a Gunnar Gundy store, if I'm right. And it
Classic.
was just, yeah, classic Oklahoma State there, you know? So, ah. All right. Well, so what we're both saying, wins against BYU.
Yeah. Yep.
All right. So for a quick recap, both of us are saying wins for all three non-conference games. You're saying loss at Iowa State. I'm saying win, but barely. Both saying losses to the state of Kansas. We're both saying wins against West Virginia and Cincinnati. So right now, you've got us at 5 wins. I've got us at 6 wins with 4 games going in the last and end out the season. We're both saying losses to OU and UCF. And then I'm saying a win at Houston and a win BYU. You're saying loss at Houston and win against BYU. So you're saying we get bowl eligible here, but basically by that last game of the season against BYU, I'm saying we're bowl eligible by 2 games. I'm saying we're pretty good. Um, I'll be curious here when we do a whole Big 12 preview, hopefully with Will and maybe
Hmm.
get Patrick on here as well too, as the two guys who have went to the schools that are leaving the conference after the season. But maybe Patrick's head will be on a little bit straighter here because last year the only team he picked Texas, and the only team he thought Texas would lose to was Oklahoma State. And of course he was right, but you know what? Um ah, it's it's gonna be funny. So we'll see what Patrick picks. Um Also, I just wanted this is breaking news from Brad Murphy as we've been recording the podcast. And this is about Big 12 football, so I want a Big 12 membership overall. Colorado has scheduled a Board of Regents meeting for a second consecutive day for Thursday, where the Buffs are expected to discuss and approve a move to the Big 12. Sources told Action Network. It's 98% source told Action Network. Colorado has yet to apply for Big 12 membership, source said. So,
Interesting.
all I is as we end this out, let's say Colorado joins. Who's the other school from the Pac-12 you theoretically would want to? Who's the other school from the Pac-12 you'd want to join? Colorado and
Huh.
from the Pac-12, you got to pick another team. Can't be USC or UCLA because they're going to Big Ten.
My this is why don't they just get San Diego State?
What? We don't want San Diego State.
The Big 12?
No. Why would the Big 12 want San Diego State?
We got BYU.
Why? Why would the Big 12 want San Diego State?
Why would the Big 12 want Colorado?
Go to games, and I could come out and see you and say hi and visit and say what's up. But why else? Right?
I think the Big 12 is doing the smart thing and pivoting towards basketball being their calling card, especially with the UConn stuff that came up, the Gonzaga stuff. Like that's clearly where their head's at. Their head's not on football right now. The Colorado thing, I mean, I think Dion's going to get a lot of recruits, but I think they might suck. So, like, I guess why would I want Colorado? That's my question. Like, why would the Big 12 want Colorado? Because they provide nothing in terms of athletic success in any sport at all. They do nothing. I like if I were the Big 12, I would just call both the Arizona schools up. That's what I would do.
All right, but I'm saying in this makeshift scenario, Colorado joins Big 12, you can only add one Pac-12 school. So they'll otherwise I'd be with you. I'd say Arizona and Arizona State. I'd say get the two closest ones that are together that bring two ties that get a whole state, et cetera. But
Mhm.
in this scenario, I'm saying you got to choose either, one. Well, you got to choose one school. I and Oregon and Washington are far northwest, but of course, to me, I'm saying Oregon. Bring in Oregon. Why not? Oregon and Oregon State is not a pair that you want. You'd rather have Oregon and Washington at that point. I'd bring in Oregon.
Utah.
You
Utah.
take Utah over Oregon if you've got
I
Colorado.
wouldn't. I wouldn't take Utah over Oregon, but I think I think people are probably going to not do the Oklahoma State route where they split. I think a lot of those communities and a lot of those states want to keep those public schools together in the same conference, just simply because it's easier. And as we know on the West Coast, things are a lot more spread out. Whereas in Oklahoma, there's how many D1 programs within a 300-mile radius? It's a lot. Like if you drew a 300-mile radius around Stillwater, it's about a 6-hour drive. There's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, there's both KU schools. Missouri's probably not too far out of that 300-mile radius, or the 300 more than 300 miles from OSU. I don't think they are. Got Arkansas right there, who Oklahoma State's home and home with for several years. Yeah, I'm with you. You got OU, of course. Got Tulsa, that makes noise, you got ORU, who makes noise.
Baylor's probably close.
Baylor, TCU, of course, going to mention in there at that
Yeah,
point as
TCU,
well.
SMU, Tech.
If we're
Tech
talking
might
about
be close.
if we're talking about 6-hour drive from Oklahoma City, yes, Texas Tech is 6 hours from Oklahoma City.
So I say that, and then if you do the reciprocal, right, with
Hmm.
let's say Oregon, for example,
Yeah,
not a lot, not a lot.
yeah. I
You do
just
the
think
same
all
thing.
these teams are flying now. Like I think all these guys are flying everywhere and doesn't even because Colorado, like we're flying to Colorado, right? So at that point, you're flying to,
Yeah,
and that's
I,
that's why I go with like the school with the image, and I just watched quarterback. I've been watching quarterback on Netflix. Don't know if you've watched any or all
I have.
episodes.
Yeah,
Marcus Mariota or Mariota. I've always been saying it wrong, but now watching this show, I've been saying it wrong every single time, and I can't remember which way is the right way to say it now. But yeah, I just don't love I would much rather have a Pac-12 school join than SDSU on Pac-12 because it seems like everyone's trying to grab up everyone at this point from the Pac-12, and I feel like the Pac-12 should be adding SDSU tomorrow. Yeah, I feel like that's
yeah,
the Pac-12 should be going, okay, we're losing USC and UCLA, we're adding San Diego State and Fresno State. I don't know. But you add in Devontae Adams's and Derek and David Carr's school, Fresno State. That's what I know about him because former roommate told me a lot about him. But you add them in. You do it.
right. The reason I say Utah is because BYU's already there.
Yeah, that's you know what? That's a great point. That's a great point.
Um,
Utah does make a lot of sense in that context for
and you have to imagine that they probably wouldn't mind being in the same conference and having that game be like, they call it the Holy War, but be like their Bedlam, right? It's at the end of the year. The whole, just like it is for every freaking rivalry, except, some reason people can't schedule football games in our conference. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, like that one, I know it's not the ideal answer. Um, but I can't imagine that Oregon leaves Oregon State behind. And I can't
it.
imagine that Washington leaves Washington State behind.
Well, I also can imagine Oregon leaves Washington behind and vice versa too. Like all four of the schools in that Pacific, in the PNW Pacific Northwest, can't imagine all four of them. I can't imagine one of the four breaking off without it
Yeah,
breaking.
because well, and those four schools up there are just so secluded For anyone, I haven't been up there per se, but I live on the West Coast, and there's a lot of people from that went to school up there that live down here, and they they prefer where they are. Whereas USC and UCLA, we know they're out to get money, and they operate a little bit differently. But those schools, like, they like to stick together because they're up there by themselves. There's nothing else up there. There's no other schools up there that are as big as them. There's Gonzaga, but you get that for what, 20 weeks, right? 20 weeks a year, and then what? I mean, there's no other schools in Oregon. There's no other schools in Oregon State. There are, but right, like,
I know what you mean. Yeah, who are
so
we
I
adding? We're gonna add,
right,
yeah, Gonzaga. Let's add in Boise State at that point. I mean, I don't know what to go with, right?
and we're not getting Cal, right? We're not getting Cal. They're not. They don't care.
Cal and
They don't
Stanford
care
are
about.
gonna be a pair. I mean, that
Yep,
there's
yep,
schools. I would say this and this. Um, the Pac-12 has pairings of all throughout. And Colorado
yep.
is the one that's really alone, and so is Utah for that standpoint. So adding both of those would make a lot more sense. I see where you mean with Utah. I had forgotten about the BYU ad. I kind of think of like, all right, Big 12 where it's at right now. Yeah, we're only losing Texas and OU. So who else can we add? And I kind of forget. Okay, we've got four newcomers, right? Like I would love to
And
see Louisville. Would be one of the schools. Like
yeah,
can the ACC like go Louisville? So all of a sudden it's West Virginia, Louisville, and Cincinnati, right? At some point, all three of those playing that are real close together against each other.
yeah. And I don't think people understand. Like, if you've never been out here, you don't understand almost like how spread out everything is. Because like when I lived in Atlanta, I could have gotten from Atlanta to Washington D.C. in a day. I could have driven there in a day. It wouldn't have been a fun day, but I could have done it in a day. You and I could have done it in a day. You and I cannot do San Diego to Seattle in a day. We can't do LA to Seattle in a day, or San Francisco to Seattle in a day. It's just so spread out. And so, like you said, the pairings USC UCLA, obviously we see how that worked out. We know what was going to happen with that. And I'll bring this first full circle real quick. It kind of tells me that OU always thought Texas was their pair and never thought we were.
Yeah. Well, also the SEC's got to be thinking that way too. Like the SEC's got to be like, hey, we want Texas and OU because you want the two, you want the Longhorn Network, right?
Yep. Already.
Unfortunately, but you do.
Well, if you're the SEC, who would you pick? Texas or Oklahoma State?
Oh,
I mean, it's not hard, right? And
well,
so
if you're the SEC, you're probably going, we want Texas and then who? I mean, to be honest, money wise,
yes, yes, yeah,
how Lincoln
100%.
Riley left, all that type of stuff. Now that Lincoln Riley was there at OU before the whole thing was finalized, but and apparently Lincoln Riley went for USC thinking I don't want to, be part of the SEC or whatever reasons he went to. Could have been because he's getting paid $10 million a year, or we don't know how much by USC too. I mean, could be because he wants to live in Southern California. Can't blame the guy. So, I mean, especially with the
Me,
Spanish style house, as,
me neither.
right? Like I'm not trying to put anything bad on him. I'm just saying if you're ESPN, if you're the SEC, you go, we want Texas and then who? And it's like, oh, well then OU. We want the biggest second, biggest football school. But
Yeah,
it's Texas
and that's
if you're cherry picking.
yeah, and that's not even like a slight on OU. That's more of like a prop up to Texas because they're just a rung above everybody else.
Their money situation is baffling when you really look at it and how in any given year they are. I mean, the amount of guys they have they go D1
Yeah,
drafted. Like when I tell people who are not from Oklahoma, did not go to Oklahoma State, and I say, yeah, Oklahoma State, we have a better record against Texas over the past decade, and we kind of own them, right? Or we
hmm
own them. They're like, really? Huh? I thought Texas was, and it's because you always get this offseason high about Texas, and it kind of fades away. Fades away. because you hear that Texas is back, it's laughable, it's a meme, and all of a sudden you don't realize it, but Texas barely won 8 games. I mean, every year. And that's the years
Whatever.
Oklahoma State wins 10. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the teams we're beating. Being last year in Stillwater when we had a bad season, right? Like it's just something that you just
And Texas has been really investing in their other sports too.
yeah.
Football, baseball, they're obviously really good. We know that. In basketball, they're definitely on the up and up. I'm trying to remember what the coach's name, the guy they brought on, but I think he's
After Chris
probably
Beard, yeah.
the guy that took over. I think he's probably gonna take them to some levels. Why am I'm blanking on his name? I got to do this real quick. So Rodney Terry. I was going to say Perry. Rodney Terry is their new head basketball coach, and they were pretty successful in basketball this year too, if we imagine. And the SEC is very prideful about their baseball because they're very good at it, and it's a hotbed down there where I grew up. And the SEC is also getting a lot better at basketball too. So, not to mention all of the Olympic sports that Texas brings as well. So, yeah, that pairing is probably going to work out pretty well for going to be a pretty symbiotic relationship in terms of how much money they can make. They'll be having games about how much money they can make. So,
Yeah, no kidding. All right, well, Jake, thanks so much for joining me here on the latest episode of the CGA Tour podcast. If you're not already, please follow, like, subscribe, everything you can. Help support the podcast here on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it may be, TikTok. And catch you guys again soon here.